Well, I finally got this thing up and done. Put this bike down here. Whoops. Okay, so I had the deck off because this gearbox back here was bad. It was seized up. You can see the drive shaft going into it. So I ordered a new one from Jack's Small Engines online, and then they canceled the order because they must have not had it in inventory like they thought or something. So then I did another search and found it on Walmart.com, of all places, being sold, distributed by, well, I shouldn't say that. Whoever the sellers, I don't know, but Briggs and Stratton, of all things. And then they called it a Titan door draft stopper. Well, I took a chance because it was free delivery and you could return it to the store if it wasn't right. So I just got it 2 days ago, I think. And that puppy was $330. It's a Peerless. But that was the cheapest one I could find online, and there's only a couple places you can buy it from. I didn't do this patchwork. The guy at the hardware store did. And that's actually, for a quick patch job for the customer, not bad. But, one thing he did, I would never do. Right here's a patch. I did that. That's some thick sheet metal. And then there's couple more in there. He bondoed over it. There's holes. This thing's been around many years. I think it's 1995. But anyway, I would never bondo on something like that. Right over the hole. Some of them at least had duct tape over it, but what good does that do? Because all the debris comes right up through it. So I had to chip all that stuff off there and weld those patches in. I replaced a lot of hardware underneath here. All of these rollers that you see, there's 3 up front and then 2 in the back. The plastic is really wallowed out inside there, and then the bolts that went in there, most of them snapped because they were worn so far, the diameter was worn down that they just came right out broken. And rather than buy new rollers, I there's some, you can see this black, that's black iron pipe. Anyway, I made it work without having to rattle on about it. So then I needed some blades because the blades were bad, and they had 3 blades that been sitting in there for years. They were, well, I don't know about years, but they said they had been there a long time and they were used, but they were in great shape. And I had to cut them down to size. So what I did was found a bolt that was the same size diameter of the center hole, and I put the bolt in my vise over there, placed the blade on it, put a nut down on it, measured from the nut to each end of the blade, and I cut it off on my saw, and then if it was off a little bit, I got my grinder out and got her right down to the same thing, same length on each side. And then the tips of the cutting edges were touching when I would spin them, so I cut angles off on them and works great. What else did I do to this thing? Most of it was all, well, you know what? Everything I've done it's been all deck work. So, but the gearbox being the biggest thing. So I paid $300 for this. And like I said, the gearbox was $330. With the hardware that I put into it, I've got $700 into it. And I don't know if I want to keep it or not. I mowed with it a couple times and I really like it. And I cannot steer this thing straight if I use two hands. So I just throw an elbow up on the armrest and steer it with one hand, and it does pretty good. I just hang on to it like this, and then I can just do that to steer. And works pretty good. This thing has 2 tanks on it, and you can switch it right there. The tires are all good. This one just has a small, tiny little pinhole in the tread, and I've not plugged it. I'm just going to leave it alone for now until I finally get around to it. This one, I'm waiting for a belt. That's a whole story in itself. One day, I dropped the axle 4 or 5 times, because to replace any belt on there, you have to drop the axle. I became an expert in one day, and there's no videos on YouTube about that anywhere. And so I started to make one, my very first teardown, and it's going to be a mess. But maybe the next time I have to tear it down, I'll make one good video. I don't know. So, well, there's an update. I think that's the... You know what? This is the worst part of the whole job, is getting this thing off from there. Because you have these 2 springs that are pulling one way, and you don't know if that thing is going to go flying and you're going to break your fingers. But it's going to be interesting getting that put back on. And then that's it. So it is Thursday night, late, and I'm going to go in and eat, and then think about going to bed. So I hope you're having a wonderful summer so far. It's really cool out tonight. Happened at a good time because our furnace malfunctioned, and I called American Home Shield. They sent a technician out today. There's a circuit board down in the bottom portion of the furnace that gets moisture on it and it corrodes, and then we have to get it replaced. This is the 3rd or 4th time over the years. We can't figure out why it's getting moisture on it. All right, enough flapping. It's been 8.5 minutes, so good night.